Today I want to talk about the two types of fat that lives on our body. When we think about the fat that we store, the fat that we have on our body, we often think of subcutaneous fat, and that's the fat right under the skin, the fat that we see move, the jiggly stuff that we often focus on. And when we find a nutrition plan or a fitness plan, or we go to lose weight, we often think about primarily this type of subcutaneous fat. And what I want to talk about today, though, is the other fat that lives on our body, especially for those of us over 40. We're more prone to having this kind of fat, and it's called visceral fat. You may have heard about visceral fat. It is not visible because it lives deeper inside the body and it surrounds our organs. And this is actually the fat that is more dangerous, the fat that can affect our health way more than the jiggly arms or the little bit of jiggle on the belly that we got going on. It's that visceral fat that surrounds our organs that is contributing to potential heart disease or type 2 diabetes, inflammation, insulin resistance. And that is what I want to focus on today. It won't be a very long live today. It'll just be a few minutes of what's causing this visceral fat and then what we can do to get rid of it. And I was talking to a client the other day, and what's really exciting is that even though we can't see it, it's the first to go. So once we start changing our lifestyle, it is the first fat that goes. So before we see that subcutaneous fat under the skin disappear, it's the visceral fat that our body looks after first. Because it's the more dangerous one for our health, our body wants it to go first. So that's the really exciting thing. So visceral fat can often go unnoticed because, like I mentioned, we can't see it. It's underneath deeper underneath in our body that surrounds our organs. So it can often go unnoticed. And as our hormones are changing over 40, the visceral fat can potentially, depending on our lifestyle, accumulate even more. With these hormone changes over 40, our cortisol levels are often higher, and that is one of the main contributors, is high cortisol levels, which is storing fat around our organs. We've also got different lifestyle, like sedentary lifestyles can often accumulate visceral fat on the body. Different diets like high processed foods or a lot of simple carbohydrates can get stored in everywhere, but are as well in the visceral fat areas around the organs. So what we want to do is the opposite of those things, right? To get rid of that visceral fat, which will look after the subcutaneous fat as well, which is that visual aesthetic that we want to look after. The visceral fat, I believe, is the more important one. But by looking after the visceral fat, the subcutaneous fat will also get looked after too. So in order to combat that, we want to do exactly the opposite of what's storing the fat around the organs. The same things in the opposite way can get rid of those. So the three things that I always recommend, and they tend to be the foundational things, the simplest things, but often the things, because we know the action doesn't actually get done. But I'm going to give you three things that I want you to do starting today that you can incorporate into every single day to help with that visceral fat. So number one is movement. Number one, move every single day in whatever way that looks like. That can mean going for a walk. That can mean doing some sort of gentle yoga. That can mean doing a full-on HIIT workout, doing a strength training workout. Something that moves your body every single day is going to help with the responding to the cortisol. It's going to help bring in oxytocin, which will help to naturally, that's the hormone that naturally combats cortisol. And then when your cortisol is looked after, that's going to be one step into getting that visceral fat looked after. The second thing has to do with what we're eating. And back to basics, back to how we ate hundreds, thousands of years ago, real food, just real food. It's the processed food that is the inflammatory food in our body, and that's what's really hanging on. That's why our body is hanging on to that visceral fat, is because of the processed foods that we're eating. So if we can go back to things that swim, grow, fly, run, actual food that we can eat is going to really help. The body knows what to do with these things, and so that's going to really help to not store fat viscerally, but also to shed it, to get rid of it around our organs as well. And So I kind of went stress management and movement all in one, but if we go into, so I said movement, nutrition, and then stress management in terms of movement, yes, but also in terms of just relaxation, recovery, something that is gentle. It's maybe spending time alone, spending time in meditation, spending time deep breathing, spending time in a calm state. And I think we know this needs to happen, but it often gets overlooked. So if you can even start with, if you don't have this incorporated into your life already, if you can even start with 5 minutes every day where you can just sit down, take some nice deep breaths. Maybe it's outside in nature, maybe it's in the bath, maybe it's just on the couch with your eyes closed. Wherever you can do this for 5 minutes and take some real big deep breaths in through your nose, fill up your lungs in the top, fill up your belly in the bottom of your lungs, and then just let it go. Sometimes at the beginning, a nice big sigh is really good. Once you get those sighs out of the way, then you can bring in those long inhales and exhales in through the nose and out through the mouth. And if you do that for 5 minutes or even 10 breaths, 10 conscious breaths, that will really help to bring down those cortisol levels as well. So regular movement, strength training is really good if you can bring that in for at least once a week. If you don't have that into your day already, over 40, that's one of the biggest things we can do to increase our energy and our metabolism, but also to help combat that visceral fat. As well as regular movement like walks. If you like some high intensity stuff, bring in that a day or two a week. And if that's a great starting point. Once you got a starting point, sometimes I think when there's so many things we think we need to do, it feels overwhelming. But if we have a starting point where 5 minutes of deep breathing, a walk every day, and eating real whole food, that's a great place to start, and then we can build it up from there. We don't have to start way up here. We get to start where we can, and then we can build it up as we go and as we find necessary. So subcutaneous fat is the one we always look at. That's the one right under the skin. That's the one that when we work out and when we eat, we want to we look at, because that's what we want to deal with. But I wanted to challenge our thinking a little bit today and bring us a little bit deeper, because visceral fat is deeper. So I wanted to bring our attention a little bit deeper into that visceral fat and deal with that first. Ultimately, the things that we're doing to deal with the visceral fat will also look after the subcutaneous fat, but knowing that the visceral fat is our primary focus, that the reason we're doing what we're doing for health. That's why we move. And to know that also over 40, we are more prone to storing this visceral fat. So make it a higher priority on your list. I encourage you. I would love to know what you are going to do for your movement. What do you like? How do you like to move? What's your favorite natural food? Something that grows, something that swims, something that flies, something that runs. What's your favorite natural food? And then let me know your favorite breathing technique. I would love to know in the comments. What's your favorite? If you are looking for some specific things to do, whether that's meals to make or movement to take or some breathing exercises, I have some really great free options there. I've got some good recipes. If you go to my bio, there's some recipes in there. There is the Hormone Harmony Quick Start Guide, which brings you through some breathing techniques as well as some different recipes that are going to balance your hormones to stabilize your blood sugar, which will help with that visceral fat and the insulin and the cortisol. So yeah, if you go into my bio, click on there, there's a whole bunch of free stuff in there. You can have a look if you need a place to start, if you need some direction, and I will talk to you again soon. Here's to our health and vitality. Bye for now.